Imagine someone who just received a significant raise at work. Their paycheck grows by 20%, maybe even 50%, and suddenly they feel like they are on the path to financial freedom. They might picture themselves saving more, investing more, or finally buying the things they've always wanted without guilt. Yet, months later, their bank account barely looks different. Their debt hasn't shrunk, their investments haven't grown substantially, and despite earning more, they feel no closer to long-term security. This scenario is common because income growth on its own is often treated as a solution when, in reality, it is only a part of a much larger system. Understanding why requires stepping beyond simple paychecks and looking at the mechanics of money, human behavior, and systemic economic pressures. Income growth is intuitive. The more you earn, the more you can save and invest. However, psychological patterns and social pressures frequently intercept this logic. Behavioral economists call this the lifestyle creep phenomenon. As income increases, spending increases to match perceived new status, social norms, or personal expectations. People upgrade their cars, homes, and even vacations in proportion to their new earnings, often without considering long-term implications. At the same time, human psychology exaggerates the perception of need over the reality of available resources. Even a 50% raise can feel insufficient if expenses rise in tandem, creating the illusion that money is fleeting rather than systematically controlled. The first step to understanding wealth accumulation is realizing that without intentional structuring, extra income is often absorbed by incremental spending rather than invested in ways that generate compounding value. Mathematically, the problem becomes clearer. Consider a person earning $50,000 annually who saves 10% of their income. That's $5,000 a year invested in a diversified portfolio. Now imagine they earn $100,000, a doubling of income, but simultaneously double their lifestyle expenses. Their saving rate might remain at 10%, now $10,000, which is better, but their expenses have grown to match, leaving discretionary leverage almost unchanged. The marginal utility of extra income is absorbed by consumption. The critical realization here is that income alone is not leverage. It only becomes leverage when paired with disciplined allocation, systematic savings, and investment in assets that compound over time. Wealth is not a direct function of earnings, it is a function of the ratio between what is earned and what is allocated toward wealth-generating structures. Systemic pressures exacerbate this effect. Economic systems reward consumption, often signaling status through spending patterns. Marketing, social media, and peer behavior reinforce the message that higher income should equate to higher lifestyle visibility. Financial psychology demonstrates that humans naturally anchor to reference points, and as income grows, these anchors shift quickly. Without conscious effort, spending will escalate, often faster than income growth, creating the paradox of financial stagnation amidst nominal prosperity. This is why many high-income individuals struggle to build substantial wealth. They are caught in a structural, behavioral loop that consumes the benefits of increased earnings. Understanding this requires examining both micro-level habits and macro-level incentives simultaneously. There's also a time component to consider. Wealth accumulation is not linear. It compounds. Simply increasing income without structuring savings or investments to leverage compound growth is equivalent to running in place. The early phases of wealth building are particularly sensitive to disciplined allocation. Even modest, consistent investments in low-cost index funds or diversified assets can, over decades, result in exponential growth. Conversely, inflating lifestyle in proportion to income effectively resets the wealth-building clock repeatedly. Historical patterns of financial success often reveal a common thread. Individuals who achieve lasting wealth maintain a gap between earnings and lifestyle, deliberately channeling surplus into vehicles that grow autonomously. Consider an illustrative scenario.
two professionals start earning $70,000 annually. Person A maintains a simple lifestyle, investing 20% of income consistently. Person B upgrades their lifestyle aggressively with each pay increase, investing only 5%. After 20 years, assuming a conservative 7% annualized return, Person A will have accumulated over $700,000, while Person B, despite a higher nominal income trajectory, will have significantly less, demonstrating the exponential effect of disciplined allocation versus mere income growth. This simple mathematical reality highlights a counterintuitive truth. Income is not wealth, allocation is. Financial psychology reinforces this by showing that consistent habits, rather than episodic earnings windfalls, dictate long-term outcomes. The identity of an individual also shifts subtly with income growth. Higher earnings can subconsciously alter self-perception, social expectations, and decision-making frameworks. This identity shift can influence spending choices, investment patience, and risk tolerance. When people perceive themselves as wealthier, even temporarily, they may make decisions that align with perceived status rather than long-term strategy. Behavioral studies reveal that income growth often triggers immediate gratification tendencies, despite long-term intentions. Recognizing this psychological dimension is crucial because wealth building is not solely a mathematical exercise. It is also an exercise in managing cognitive and emotional responses to money. Systemically, the mechanisms of modern economies favor visibility over accumulation. Inflation, consumer credit availability, and lifestyle signaling create environments where extra income is efficiently converted into expenditures rather than stored or invested. Even in the absence of explicit financial illiteracy, structural pressures and human biases combine to limit the wealth-building potential of higher earnings. The challenge is not to earn more, but to design systems that automatically translate incremental income into assets that generate further value. This requires setting boundaries, automating allocation, and maintaining awareness of psychological traps that accompany rising income levels. Historical financial parallels further reinforce this principle. Individuals who navigated industrial booms, technological revolutions, or post-war economic expansion often succeeded not merely because they earned more, but because they preserved a portion of earnings consistently and directed them into productive investments. Case studies from early 20th century industrialists and mid-century middle-class savers illustrate a pattern. Those who allowed income increases to dictate lifestyle experienced minimal wealth growth, whereas those who maintained disciplined allocation saw compounding benefits. The systemic and psychological dynamics are consistent across eras, underscoring the universality of this concept. For many viewers, this insight can be liberating. Understanding that wealth is constructed from consistent structural behavior rather than episodic income can shift focus from chasing raises to optimizing systems. Financial literacy alone is insufficient without behavioral alignment. By integrating psychological awareness, mathematical frameworks, and systemic thinking, individuals can transform nominal earnings into meaningful wealth over time. This does not require extreme frugality or sacrifice, but rather deliberate planning, automated processes, and conscious monitoring of behavioral biases that emerge with income growth. The mathematical backbone is simple yet powerful. Compounding works best when the principal grows steadily, even modestly, and when contributions are consistent. Income is only a lever to the extent that it is coupled with disciplined allocation into compounding vehicles. Human psychology naturally gravitates toward consumption as income rises, making automated systems, habit formation, and accountability critical. Tools like automated contributions, diversified portfolios, and transparent tracking of net worth mitigate the behavioral drift that erodes the value of higher earnings. Recognizing and neutralizing the lifestyle creep effect transforms extra income from a fleeting benefit into a long-term asset-building mechanism. In conclusion, the key takeaway is that income growth alone rarely builds wealth because human behavior, systemic incentives, and mathematical realities all conspire to absorb incremental earnings into consumption. True wealth emerges when individuals intentionally design systems that convert additional income into assets, leverage the exponential power of compounding, and maintain psychological discipline over decades. Recognizing the invisible forces of lifestyle creep, identity shifts, and systemic consumption pressures allows people to harness income as a tool rather than fall victim to it. Wealth is not a function of how much you earn, but how consistently you structure, allocate, and grow what you earn.